Monday night, October 5th, 2020. Lambeau Field under the lights. Green Bay's 3-0, riding an offense that's looked nearly unstoppable. But tonight, things are different. Davante Adams is out. Allen Lazard is on injured reserve. Veteran tight end Marcedes Lewis can't go either, a knee injury. Green Bay's top 3 pass catchers beyond Aaron Rodgers are all missing. And then, a 6'5" tight end from a school most NFL fans have never heard of steps into the spotlight. Robert Tonyan catches 6 passes for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. He becomes just the 3rd tight end in Packers franchise history since 1952, scored 3 times in a single game. The Packers win 30-16, and the national audience is asking one question: who is this guy? But here's what you didn't see: the years of doubt, the cut that almost ended everything, and the long invisible grind that made that Monday night possible. Let's take it back to the beginning. Robert Tonyan grew up in McHenry, Illinois, a small city on the northwest edge of the Chicago suburbs. In high school, he wasn't a receiver, he wasn't a tight end. He was a quarterback, and a pretty good one. At McHenry East High School, Tonyan set the school's career passing record with 5,000 yards and threw 40 touchdowns. He earned all-conference honors as both a junior and a senior. But when it came time to pick a college, the recruiting interest was modest. North Dakota, Air Force, Bowling Green, Indiana State, and Illinois showed some level of attention. That's it. No Power 5 programs came calling. After weighing his options, Tonyan chose Indiana State, a school in Terre Haute, playing in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. It's an FCS program, not the kind of place that sends a lot of guys to the NFL. Tonyan redshirted his first year in 2012. The following season, he played in 11 games as a redshirt freshman quarterback, starting 3. He completed 35 of 102 passes for 348 yards and 3 touchdowns. It wasn't exactly a breakout. The numbers were rough, and the coaching staff made a decision that would reshape his entire future. Before his sophomore season in 2014, Tonyan was moved from quarterback to wide receiver. Think about that for a second. He'd spent his entire football life throwing the ball. Now he had to learn how to run routes, read defensive coverages from the other side, and catch passes at a competitive level. He had no experience catching footballs in a game setting, but the transition worked faster than anyone expected. In his first year at receiver, he caught 54 passes for 747 yards and 4 touchdowns. As a junior, despite starting only 6 of 11 games, he put up 40 receptions for 601 yards and 6 scores, earning an honorable mention on the All-Missouri Valley team. Then came his senior year, 2016. Tonyan exploded: 56 catches, 699 yards, and a school record 10 touchdown receptions. By the time he finished at Indiana State, he owned the program record for career touchdown catches with 20 and had 21 consecutive games with at least 1 reception. He was second all-time in school history with 150 catches and over 2,000 receiving yards. The problem was, none of that carried much weight with NFL scouts. He played at an FCS school. He'd only been catching passes for 3 seasons. And he was being evaluated as a tight end prospect because of his size, even though he'd lined up as a wideout his whole college career. Scouts loved his athleticism and his second gear on routes, but they questioned his blocking ability and his limited experience running a full route tree against top-level corners and safeties. When the 2017 NFL Draft came around, Tonyan was projected as a late-round possibility. Maybe the 6th or 7th round, but the draft went all 7 rounds. 253 names were called, wasn't one of them. What happened next says a lot about how the undrafted free agent process works. Before the draft even ended, teams had already been in contact. Jim Caldwell's Detroit Lions told Tonyan they'd sign him if he went undrafted. And on May 12, 2017, that's exactly what happened. Tonyan signed a 3-year deal worth $1.66 million. He became only the 10th Indiana State football player in history to sign an NFL contract. But making it to camp doesn't mean making it to the roster. Tonyan entered Detroit's training camp as a long shot. Through the entire preseason, he caught just 2 passes for 21 yards. When final roster cuts came on September 2nd, the Lions let him go. They didn't even offer him a spot on the practice squad. That part stings. It means the team didn't see enough upside to keep him around, even in a developmental role. So there he was, 23 years old. Former college quarterback turned receiver turned tight end, cut from the only team that gave him a shot. No practice squad offer. No phone ringing. For most of the 2017 regular season, Robert Tonyan was out of football entirely. He's just a guy with an NFL dream and no team willing to take a chance on him. Months passed. And then, in early December of 2017, the Green Bay Packers had a roster move. They activated tight end Michael Clark from the practice squad to the 53-man roster, which opened up one practice squad spot. On December 5th, Green Bay signed Tonyan to fill it. It wasn't a promotion. It wasn't a contract. It was the absolute bottom rung of the NFL ladder. A practice squad player doesn't suit up on Sundays. He runs the opposing team's plays during the week, so the starters can prepare, gets paid a fraction of what active roster players earn, and he can be released at any time. Tonyan spent the final 4 weeks of that season on the Packers practice squad. He never saw the field on game day. But when the season ended, Green Bay signed him to a reserve futures contract. That meant one more shot, one more training camp, one more chance to prove he belonged. In the summer of 2018, Tonyan showed up and fought for a roster spot. The Packers had signed Jimmy Graham, a 5-time Pro Bowler, and also had Marcedes Lewis and Lance Kendricks ahead of him at tight end. Tonyan was the clear fourth option, but in the preseason, he turned heads. Led all Packers tight ends with 8 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns across 4 exhibition games. The coaching staff noticed his hands, his route running instincts, and the fact that he rarely dropped the ball. When the initial 53-man roster was announced, Tonyan's name was on it. Green Bay kept 4 tight ends for the first time in several years, and he was the 4th. He'd gone from unemployed to an NFL roster in less than a year. But making the team didn't mean playing. In 2018, he appeared in 16 games but was barely targeted. His first career reception came in Week 11 against the Seattle Seahawks. And it was a moment nobody saw coming. Aaron Rodgers dropped back, looked downfield, and found Tonyan streaking behind the defense for a 54-yard touchdown. It was the longest touchdown catch by a Packers player on his first career reception since 1983. Just like that, former practice squad tight end had announced himself with one of the most memorable plays of the season for Green Bay. But one play doesn't make a career. Tonyan finished 2018 with just 4 catches for 77 yards and that single touchdown. In 2019, he played in 11 games, but managed only 10 receptions for 100 yards. Hip injury kept him inactive for 5 weeks. He was still an afterthought in the offense, still buried on the depth chart, still waiting. Then came the offseason that changed everything. In March of 2020, the Packers released Jimmy Graham, the biggest name at tight end in Green Bay since Jermichael Finley. Graham's 2 seasons had been disappointing. Just 5 total touchdowns and declining production. His departure left a massive hole at the position. And Robert Tonyan, the undrafted tight end from Indiana State who'd been cut, unsigned, and buried on the depth chart for 3 years, was suddenly next in line. The 2020 season opened, and Robert Tonyan wasn't just on the roster, he was in the mix. New head coach Matt LaFleur, now in his 2nd year, had been watching Tonyan develop behind the scenes. The athleticism was obvious. What had changed was the detail work, the blocking technique, the understanding of where to be and when to be there. 3 years of practice reps, scout teamwork, and film study had quietly turned a raw prospect into a reliable tight end. In Week 2, against the Detroit Lions, the team that had cut him 3 years earlier, Tonyan caught an 11-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers in a 42-21 blowout. It was his 3rd career touchdown, nothing spectacular on its own, but it was a sign that the connection between him and Rodgers was real. Week 3 brought another score. Tonyan was starting to find a rhythm. He wasn't putting up huge yardage numbers, but he was converting when it mattered. Rodgers trusted him in the red zone. That kind of trust doesn't happen overnight. It's built in practice, rep after rep, over years. Then came Week 4. Monday Night Football, October 5th, Green Bay versus Atlanta. And this is where the story truly turns. The Packers were missing their top weapons. Davante Adams was out for a 2nd straight game with a hamstring issue. Allen Lazard was on injured reserve with a core muscle problem. Marcedes Lewis sat out with a knee injury. Atlanta's secondary was also banged up. They were already without 2 starting safeties and a cornerback, and during the game they lost 2 more defensive backs to injuries. The conditions were set for someone unexpected to step up. Green Bay scored on its opening drive, a 6-yard touchdown pass from Rodgers to Aaron Jones. Then the Falcons put together a long drive capped by a 23-yard field goal to make it 7-3. The Packers drove down the field again on a methodical 11-play possession. On 3rd and 14 late in the second quarter, Rodgers found Tonyan on a leaping 19-yard touchdown catch. It was the kind of athletic play that reminded everyone this was a guy who once played quarterback and then taught himself to catch. The extra point was missed, making it 13-3. But what happened next set the tone for the rest of the night. Atlanta went 3 and out. Green Bay got the ball back with under a minute left in the half. In just 51 seconds, the Packers drove 50 yards, capped by an 8-yard touchdown pass from Rodgers to Tonyan. 20-3 at halftime. The Falcons made it interesting briefly in the third quarter. Todd Gurley punched in a 5-yard rushing touchdown to cut it to 22-9 after a missed extra point. But on the very next Packers possession, Tonyan delivered the play of the night. He ran his route, got tangled up with a defender, actually fell down and somersaulted, then got back to his feet and kept running. Was wide open in the end zone when Rodgers fired a 21-yard strike. Touchdown, 27-9. Game over in all but the final score. That play, that stumble, that recovery, that finish. That's what separated Tonyan from the hundreds of guys who cycle through practice squads every year. It wasn't just talent, it was instinct. It was the refusal to give up on the play, the route, the moment. Tonyan finished the night with 6 catches for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. All career highs. He became just the 3rd tight end in Packers history since 1952 to score 3 receiving touchdowns in a game. Joining Keith Jackson in '96 and Jermichael Finley in 2011, he also became the first undrafted player to catch 3 touchdowns in a game for Green Bay since Bob Maughan in 1950. Rodgers went 27 for 33, 327 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. After the game, he praised Tonyan's work ethic and feel for the passing game. Tonyan's response was characteristically low-key, said the game had slowed down for him, that he spent time at home on the couch, just replaying games in his head, thinking about making plays. That Monday night was the spark, but it wasn't the peak. Tonyan's 2020 season kept building. After a 5-game stretch without a touchdown following the Atlanta game, he caught a scoring pass in 5 consecutive games from Week 11 through Week 15. That was the longest touchdown streak by a tight end in Packers franchise history. By the end of the regular season, the numbers told a story of transformation. 52 receptions, 586 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. Those 11 scores tied the Packers' single-season franchise record for a tight end, matching Paul Kaufman's mark set in 1984. Tonyan also tied Travis Kelce for the most touchdown receptions among all tight ends in the NFL that year. He led all tight ends with an 88.1% catch rate. He was, statistically, one of the most efficient pass catchers in the entire league. He and Kaufman became the only 2 tight ends in Packers history to post 45 or more catches, 500 or more receiving yards, and 9 or more touchdowns in a single season. That's elite company for a guy who was out of football entirely 3 years earlier. The 2020 season ended with a trip to the NFC Championship game against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Green Bay lost 31-26, falling just short of the Super Bowl, but Tonyan was there. He caught 4 passes for 22 yards and a touchdown in that game. A meaningful contribution on the biggest stage of his career. Think about the arc. In 2017, this man was unsigned, sitting at home wondering if anyone would call. In 2020, he's catching touchdowns in an NFC title game with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball and the whole country watching. The following offseason, the Packers placed a second-round restricted free agent tender on Tonyan, a clear sign they valued what he brought. He signed the tender worth $3.4 million. That's a long way from a practice squad paycheck. But football has a way of testing you over and over. In October of 2021, during a Week 8 game against the Arizona Cardinals, Tonyan tore the ACL in his left knee. His season was over. The injury came just as he was establishing himself as a starter. He finished that year with 18 catches, 204 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 8 games. Tonyan returned in 2022, playing all 17 games and catching 53 passes for 470 yards. The touchdowns dropped to just 2. He was different after the injury, still reliable, still solid as a blocker, but the explosive plays weren't there the way they'd been in 2020. He re-signed on a 1-year deal, a sign that the market wasn't rushing to pay him top dollar. After the 2022 season, Tonyan left Green Bay. He signed with the Chicago Bears in 2023, then the Minnesota Vikings in 2024. His production dipped. 11 catches and 112 yards with Chicago. It's near 0 stats in Minnesota before being released. But his story isn't defined by the ending. It's defined by the climb. Robert Tonyan went undrafted. He was cut from the only team that believed in him. He spent months out of football, then clawed his way onto a practice squad. He survived 3 years on the fringe of an NFL roster, and when the moment came, when the injuries created an opening and the lights of Monday Night Football were shining, he delivered one of the most memorable tight end performances in Packers history. That's the reality of the NFL roster bubble. 736 players get drafted every 3 years. Thousands more sign as undrafted free agents. Most of them disappear, but every now and then, one of them sticks. One of them waits long enough, works hard enough, and is ready when the door opens just a crack. Robert Tonyan walked through that door. And for one unforgettable season, he proved he belonged. His story moved you? Hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Undrafted Stories, and we're just getting started. Y'all don't want to miss what's coming next.